Hello, good evening, and today I'm in the living room for this devotional video. No reason, I just wanted to kind of get a different background on what was behind me. And today we're covering the four devotions, not three. And the first two come under the name the Lord my banner, Yahweh Nisi, and the last two come under the Lord of hosts, Yahweh Sabaoth. With that, I'll get started. This one is called Lift Up the Cross, and it covers Numbers 21 verses 4 through 9. As Moses lifted up the snake on a pole in the desert, so the Son of Man must be lifted up. Then everyone who believes in him will have eternal life. John 3:14 to 15. Crucifixion is a brutal method of execution. Yet today, millions of Christians wear a cross to signify who they are and what they believe. To an unbelieving world, it makes no sense than wearing a miniature electric chair around our necks. The Israelites probably had similar thoughts when they first heard God's cure for the plague of poisonous snakes. God told Moses to construct a bronze snake, the image of the cause of their suffering, and put it on a standard for the people to see. When they looked at it in faith, they would be healed. They had a choice: look and live, or look for a different cure and die. Through his crucifixion, Jesus Christ took the sin of the world on himself. Looking at the cross, we see his payment for our sin. He is our only hope for salvation. We have a choice: look to the cross and live, or look for a different cure and die. The Lord my banner raised his standard, the cross lifted high. It signifies that we belong to Jesus Christ, our Yahweh Nisi. And this is the italicized prayer. Yahweh Nisi, thank you for lifting Christ on the cross to be the cure for my sin. And here's the two-part takeaway question. Have I looked to the cross as the only cure for my sin? And if not, why not? So like if you say yes to the question, the second part you don't need to worry about. So, but for this question, I wrote yes. And now we're going to look at Numbers chapter 21 verses 4 through 9. Then the people of Israel, this is Numbers 21 verses 4 through 9. Then the people of Israel set out from Mount Or, taking the road to the Red Sea to go around the land of Edom. But the people grew impatient along the way, and they began to murmur against God and Moses. Why have you brought us out of Egypt to die here in the wilderness? They complained. There is nothing to eat here and nothing to drink, and we hate this wretched manna. So the Lord sent poisonous snakes among them, and many of them were bitten and died. Then the people came to Moses and cried out, "We have sinned by speaking against the Lord and against you. Pray that the Lord will take away the snakes." So Moses prayed for the people. Then the Lord told him, "Make a replica of a poisonous snake and attach it to the top of a pole. Those who are bitten will live if they simply look at it." So Moses made a snake out of bronze and attached it to the top of a pole. Whenever those who were bitten looked at the bronze snake, they recovered. On to the second devotion. And this one's called Under His Banner. And it covers 1 Corinthians 9:19 to 23. I am not ashamed of the gospel because it is... Let me start that again. I am not ashamed of the gospel because it is the power of God for the salvation of everyone who believes, first for the Jew, then for the Gentile. Romans 1:16 NIV. It's natural to want to be like everyone else. People who are different tend to attract negative attention. However, in our haste to fit in, we may push Christ out. The Apostle Paul made a practice of relating to others on their terms, but he never forgot his intention to win people to Christ. Paul was not ashamed to live under Yahweh's banner. Today, our desire for acceptance may override our desire to witness for Christ. Instead of living under Yahweh's banner, we hide the cross of Christ under a blanket. Do our co-workers know to whom we belong? Do our co-workers know to whom we belong? As we strive for advancement, do we compromise our witness for Christ? Do our neighbors know we belong to Yahweh Nisi? Do we join in neighborhood gossip fests? Or do we share God's love to encourage those who are hurting? Living under the... sorry about all this coughing. Living under the banner of Yahweh Nisi means resting in the one we belong to, trusting that he is our sure defense, and living a life that points people. Living under the banner of Yahweh Nisi means resting in the one we belong to, trusting that he is our sure defense, and living a life that points people to him. Yep, and this is the italicized prayer. Yahweh Nisi, I confess I do not always live in a way that points people to you. Help me to be unashamed of the cross as I live under your banner. And this is the question for the takeaway for this one. How have I hidden my allegiance to Yahweh Nisi instead of living under his banner? And what I wrote for this question, not communicating the truth of the Bible to others. And now we're looking at 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 19 to 23. And this is 1 Corinthians 9, chapter 9, verses 19 to 23. This means I am not bound to obey people just because they pay me, yet I have become a servant of everyone so that I can bring them to Christ. When I am with the Jews, I become one of them so that I can bring them to Christ. When I am with those who follow the Jewish laws, I do the same, even though I am not subject to the law so that I can bring them to Christ. When I am with the Gentiles who do not have the Jewish law, I fit in with them as much as I can. In this way, I gain their confidence and bring them to Christ. But I do not discard the law of God, I obey the law of Christ. When I am with those who are oppressed, I share their oppression so that I might bring them to Christ. Yes, I try to find common ground with everyone so that I might bring them to Christ. I do all this to spread the good news, and in doing so, I enjoy its blessings. Now on to the third devotion for this video. And this one is called The Champion, and it covers two sets of verses in 1 Samuel chapter 17. It covers verses 1 through 9 and then verses 32 to 51. I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have taunted. 1 Samuel 17:45. Most of us remember the school bully. If we weren't singled out for his or her unwanted attention, then we knew the unfortunate person who was. Victims of a bully all wish for a champion to take up their cause and take down their tormentor. Imagine how Israel's army felt in the face of Goliath's taunts. Israel belonged to Yahweh, yet none had the courage to find the Philistine giant. They needed a champion to fight for them. A young shepherd understood what others missed. Goliath's taunts were not only against Israel, they were against the armies of the living God. 1 Samuel 17:36. To taunt Israel was to taunt Israel's God. With courage fueled by experience, David prepared to fight. Yahweh Sabaoth, the Lord of hosts, had fought for him before David trusted the Lord to give him victory once again. Although Israel's army marched under Yahweh's banner, they doubted the power of the Lord of hosts. But the Lord waited for someone to step forward in faith. He used David to show himself mighty in battle on behalf of his people and for the sake of his own name. And this is the italicized prayer. Yahweh Sabaoth, show yourself mighty for your glory as I step out in faith today. And here's the takeaway question. How does knowing I belong to Yahweh Sabaoth change the way I view those I fear? And this is what I wrote down. God has my back, also he has the backs of my friends and family. Now we're going to 1 Samuel chapter 17, and we're going to start in 1 Samuel chapter 17 with verses 1 through 9. And this is 1 Samuel chapter 17, verses 1 through 9, part 1 of the verses for this devotion. The Philistines now mustered their army for battle and camped between Socoh and Judah and Azekah at Ephes Dammim. Saul countered by gathering his troops near the valley of Elah. So the Philistines and Israelites faced each other on opposite hills, with the valley between them. Then Goliath, a Philistine champion from Gath, came out of the Philistine ranks to face the forces of Israel. He was a giant of a man, measuring over 9 feet tall. He wore a bronze helmet and a coat of mail that weighed 125 pounds. He also wore bronze leggings, and he slung a bronze javelin over his back. The shaft of his spear was so heavy and thick as a weaver's beam, tipped with an iron spearhead that weighed 15 pounds. An armor bearer walked ahead of him carrying a huge shield. Goliath stood and shouted across to the Israelites, "Do you need a whole army to settle this? Choose someone to fight for you, and I will represent the Philistines. We will settle this dispute in single combat. If your man is able to kill me, then we will be your slaves. But if I kill him, you will be our slaves." Now on to the fourth and final devotion for this video and this week. This one is called Spiritual Reality, and it covers let me back up. Now we're looking in the same chapter, 1 Samuel 17, at verses 32 to 51. "Don't worry about a thing," David told Saul. "I'll go fight this Philistine. Don't be ridiculous." Saul replied, "There is no way you can go against this Philistine. You are only a boy, and he has been in the army since he was a boy." But David persisted. "I have been taking care of my father's sheep," he said. "When a lion or a bear comes to steal a lamb from the flock, I go after it with a club and take the lamb from its mouth. If the animal turns to me, I catch it by the jaw and club it to death. I have done this to both lions and bears, and I'll do it to this pagan Philistine too, for he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who saved me from the claws of the lion and the bear will save me from this Philistine." Saul finally consented. "All right, go ahead," he said, "and may the Lord be with you." Then Saul gave David his own armor, a bronze helmet and a coat of mail. David put it on, strapped the sword over it, and took a step or two to see what it was like, for he had never worn such things before. "I can't go in these," he protested. "I'm not used to them." So he took them off again. He picked up 5 smooth stones from a stream and put them in his shepherd's bag. Then, armed only with his shepherd's staff and sling, he started across to fight Goliath. Goliath walked out toward David with his shield-bearer ahead of him, sneering in contempt at this ruddy-faced boy. "And am I a dog," he roared at David, "that you come at me with a stick?" And he cursed David by the names of his gods. "Come over here, and I'll give you your flesh to the birds and wild animals," Goliath yelled. David shouted in reply, "You come to me with sword, spear, and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. Today the Lord will conquer you, and I will kill you and cut off your head. And then I will give the dead bodies of your men to the birds and wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. And everyone will know that the Lord does not need weapons to rescue his people. It is his battle, not ours. The Lord will give you to us." As Goliath moved closer to attack, David quickly ran out to meet him. Reaching into his shepherd's bag and taking out a stone, he hurled it from his sling and hit the Philistine in the forehead. The stone sank in, and Goliath stumbled and fell face downward to the ground. So David triumphed over the Philistine giant with only a stone and sling, and since he had no sword, he ran over and pulled Goliath's sword from its sheath. David used it to kill the giant and cut off his head. Okay. Now on to the fourth and final devotion of this video. This one's called Spiritual Reality, and it covers 2 Kings 6:8-17. Bless the Lord, all you his hosts, you who serve him, doing his will. Psalm 103:21. Watching a 3D film without 3D glasses keeps us from enjoying the movie's full effects. Likewise, in life, when we believe that what we see is all there is, we miss opportunities to enjoy the full measure of the grace and power of God. The result is often a sense of defeat and of being overwhelmed by people and circumstances. Elisha's servant could see only the enemy's army surrounding the city with horses and chariots. His reaction was predictably fearful. Elisha did not attempt to convince his servant to give up his fear. Instead, he prayed the Lord would open his servant's eyes to the unseen reality. The enemy might have surrounded the city, but the armies of Yahweh had surrounded the enemy and the whole mountain. In Ephesians 6:12, the Apostle Paul warns that our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places. Just because we cannot see this spiritual world does not make it any less real. Even so, though our enemy may scheme and attack, we have no need to fear if we belong to Yahweh Sabaoth. The Lord of hosts fights our battles and gives us the victory. And this is the italicized prayer. Yahweh Sabaoth, open my eyes to the spiritual realities around me. And then here's the takeaway question. How can I change my perspective so that nothing blocks my view of Yahweh Sabaoth? And this is what I wrote down for this question. Be more open to others and realize me and everyone are not alone in our struggles. Now to close out this video, we're going to go to 2 Kings in chapter 6, and we're going to read verses 8-17. This is 2 Kings chapter 6, verses 8-17. When the king of Aram was at war with Israel, he would confer with his officers and say, "We will mobilize our forces at such and such place, such and such a place." But immediately Elisha, the man of God, would warn the king of Israel, "Do not go near that place, for the Arameans are planning to mobilize their troops there." So the king of Israel would send word to the place indicated by the man of God, warning the people there to be on their guard. This happened several times. The king of Aram became very upset over this. He called in his officers and demanded, "Which of you is the traitor who has been informing the king of Israel of my plans?" "It's not us, my lord," one of the officers replied. "Elisha, the prophet in Israel, tells the king of Israel even the words you speak in the privacy of your bedroom." The king commanded, Go and find out where Elisha is, and we will send troops to seize him." And the report came back, Elisha is a Dothan. So one night the king of Aram sent a great army with many chariots and horses to surround the city. When the servant of the man of God got up early the next morning and went outside, there were troops, horses, and chariots everywhere. Ah, my Lord, what will we do now? He cried out to Elisha. Don't be afraid, Elisha told him, for there are more on our side than on theirs. Then Elisha prayed, O Lord, open his eyes and let him see. The Lord opened up his servant's eyes, and when he looked up, he saw the hillside around Elisha and was filled. He saw that the hillside around Elisha was filled with horses and chariots of fire. Well, that's all the devotions I'm covering in this video and for this week. And stay tuned for next week's devotion videos. I'm not sure which days I'm gonna do them, but stay tuned for when those come out and are filmed. And have a great night, and God bless.